Heavenly Father, and your beloved Son, Jesus Christ, thank you for this another day, for this another life to enjoy and to learn, and a new set of things we will experience. As we go through our lesson today, may let us be an instrument to good things. Help us to be honest and kind, each and every one. Please bless our teachers and our classmates and my classmates as we learn today. This we ask in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. The Father,
Amen.
and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, John Rovic. So now, before the start of the actual lesson for today, let's have first, of course, uh, motivation. So our motivation for today is about statistical flight. So statistical flight is just the same of last time about word wall, but this is more different because last time we have a maze and about Pac-Man, but now we will control an airplane or a plane. So how to play this one? The same instruction, you log into the word wall link, it will be sent to you later. The player will control an airplane. The questions will be automatically flashed on the screen. The player needs to navigate the plane using the arrow up and arrow down. They need to hit the clouds or the cloud which contains the correct answer. 5 minutes will be allotted time for the whole game. They will be given 5 lives only. Actually, I gave here 3 lives only. I just revised it. Then once the player touches the cloud that has the incorrect answer, the player will crash and the number of remaining lives decreases. So as this is actually the most important, please put your name at the end of the game if you ended the game after 5 minutes, since you will be claiming your prize for the top 3. Okay? I hope everyone is ready. But before that, I will give you a uh, short demonstration on how to do the statistical flight. So here it is. This is the dry run. And then we will start. Yeah, this is how you do it. So that's an airplane. So this is the question. It is a non-directional hypothesis in terms you have test statistic on both sides. So of course the answer is two-tailed. So you will going up and down and then hit that, and then wait for the next question. If you hit the wrong answer, for example, the type of error in which you reject type true null hypothesis, this is actually type 1. But if you hit the wrong one, example beta, you will have decreasing life. And then, of course, until you reach the correct answer, it will be type 1. And then the next question goes with that. So may the best participant win in this game. I hope everyone is ready. I will be sending the word wall link in a few seconds. Wait a minute. So this is the link for the word wall. Wait a minute.
Bag ko, ma'am. Ma'am.
Ashley, please turn off your microphone. Okay. This is your word wall link. Please enter your name and then you may start. I will give you the hint for this. The cue for start. Please enter na lang siguro Anay Sabong. Always remember, it's just up and down, up and down. So you may now enter the game and we will have the countdown. Sorry. Again. Wait. Your time starts now for 5 minutes.
Hindi ako di pagkantuin. Sila kayo yung amazing job. Okay. Hoy! Sino mo?
leaderboard is just loading up, and we will be announcing the winners later for excitement. Going back to the presentation, I hope you enjoyed first the motivation for today. Going back to the presentation, we have a lot of things to do for today. This is our objective for today's video. You are expected at the end of this session, you are expected to compare means using SPSS and interpret data through Likert scale, skillfully construct null and alternative hypotheses, identify the appropriate statistical test to be utilized, accurately solve for the degree of freedom, correctly specify the level of significance, competently navigate the different statistical tests in the SPSS application, and lastly, critically analyze and interpret test result. So that will be our objective for today. And now, it is the right time to start the actual discussion. So I will be sharing my whole screen at this moment. Now, let's have first, let's have first the mean. So for today, we will have a contextualized research problem with this specific research questions. Question number 1, the College of Education are conducting a study entitled Relationship of WBSU ILS students' degree of interest in mathematics to their mathematical achievements. So here are the research questions. What is the degree of interest in mathematics of WVSU ILS student as a whole and when categorized according to sex, socioeconomic status, and year level? Number 2, is there a significant difference to the degree of interest in mathematics of WVSU ILS students, sorry for the apostrophe, when categorized according to sex, socioeconomic status, and year level? And lastly, is there a significant relationship to the degree of interest in mathematics and mathematics achievement of West Visayas State University ILS student when taken as a whole? So as you can see, the questions presented in this research problem is somewhat aligned to your own research problem. There are groups here in our class that has only 2 research problem. The number 1, which states the, for example, level of acceptability or parent involvement. So the degree of parent involvement. So that's just aligned with the research question number 1. And then for research number 2, of course, significant difference. So there is researches here. I think all of you here has a question about significant differences. And then of course, there are several or few groups who adopted the 3rd research questions, which is significant relationship. Okay? So we will discuss one by one each research question and how could we do the statistics in our SPSS, and of course how to interpret it in your chapter 4 and 5. So let's start with question number 1. What is the degree of interest in mathematics of WVSU ILS students as a whole and when categorized according to sex, socioeconomic status, and year level? Here in our study, we adopted 2 groups for sex, which are male and female, 3 groups for socioeconomic status, the poor, the middle class, and the rich. And of course, the year level, which is the 1st year, the 2nd year, the 3rd year, and the 4th year. So that's research question number 1. So the degree of interest in mathematics of WVSU ILS students will be answered in a survey form. There are, I think, 10 questions there. And then you will get the mean. So if you will get the mean in terms of degree of interest in mathematics and categorized according to sex, socioeconomic status, and year level. And when taken as a whole, of course, we need to compare the means. And thus, since we need to compare the means, we use SPSS with this statistical tool. We will compare means using the SPSS. So, how to do this? Before that, I mean, what is a mean? So, we all know the definition of mean. The mean is the what? It's actually the arithmetic average, or it is a single number representing the data center point or typical value. So everyone knows the definition of the mean, and we now need to move forward on the process and how to answer our research question number 1. Okay? As of now, is there any questions before we start? I think none. You may raise your hand if you have questions, class. So there's none. So let's start. Of course, the main thing that you need to do before starting your interpretation and analyzing your result is, of course, you collect your data. So I have collected the data for this research here in the Excel. So the data actually in the Google form, never mind first the code. I'll gonna hide it first. This is what the Google form actually, this is actually retrieved from a Google form. So the sex here, they actually answered male and female, of course, the socioeconomic status, and the year level. And then the degree of interest in mathematics here is actually the average. So I actually get already the average. But actually the main thing here is that they also answered question number 1, question number 2, until question number 10. So until 1 to 10, there is actually answers from question 1 to 10, but I get the average, which will represent the degree of interest in mathematics. So that's how we get the degree of interest. So if you get in the Excel, coming from your Google form, question 1 to 10, all you need to get is the average of all the questions. Okay? Average of all the questions to answer your research number 1. Here's question number 1. Now, where do you think did the mathematics achievement came from? I think you all know that the mathematics achievement prescribed or preferred in this study is the mathematics grade of the students or of the respondents. So this is the mathematics grade of the students from the ILS. So now we will discuss the codes. So the code for sex, we all know the code for male is 1. So of course, how to code this one, you change, for example, there's none here. So of course, you change all male into 1, and you change all female with 2. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's it for the sex. Meanwhile, if you want to do with the socioeconomic status, I actually done this one because it will take time if we'll do it one by one. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, 1. So that's how we code things for socioeconomic status. And of course, the same with year level. Of course, the first year represents 1, the second year represents 2, the third year represents 3, and the fourth year represents 4. And it depends on your study and how you code things here, for as long as you are consistent with the coding until to the last respondent of the study. So here in the study, there are 50. So you need to be consistent in coding from 1 to 50. Is there any questions about the coding as of this moment? Questions about coding? Questions about coding? You may raise your hand. Don't be shy, everyone. This will be for the benefit of everyone. Okay, I think it's clear. So now we will go back to the presentation. So since we have code and collect the data already, now, we need to start the SPSS processing. So this is how you do it. You try to delete this one, all of this, and then copy paste your codes and then degree of interest and the mathematics achievement here. Here. After that, you open your SPSS. So how to open the SPSS? Actually, na-open ko na siya, but base magsala ka mo kung anong i-open nyo. So this would be like this. Sorry for that. So you click the new data set, and then of course, you click the data view, and then you copy paste it. And of course, next thing that you need to do is to name your variables. The first variable is of course sex. The second is socio-economic status. Sorry. The third one is year level. By the way, in naming the variables, you don't need space. So as you can see there, the names is close to each other. The letters are close. There's no spaces. This one is your degree of interest. And then of course, the last one will be your mathematics achievement. Next thing that we need to do here is we need to change the values. Since we code this one here, we will change it 1. Of course, the label for 1 a while ago is male. And of course, 2 is female. So you click the values and then you add. And then that's okay. The same thing with socioeconomic status. 1 is for poor. 2 is for middle class. And 3 for, of course, rich. And then you click OK. Of course, this one would be first year. This one would be second year. This one would be third year. And of course, the last one would be fourth year. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, since we don't have a code for degree of interest and mathematics achievement, we don't have a code a while ago, so it's given, then you change the measure of every variable. So since all of this is categorical data, when I say categorical data, it's the groups are in descriptive terms, and then they are categorized according to their specific characteristic. So for example, for sex, the same characteristic for female. So the female are grouped together and then the male are grouped together. So all the categorical data here will be changed into nominal, in nominal measure. And then, of course, the degree of interest in mathematics is in mean, value in mean, and then the mathematics achievement is in grades. It is in terms of grades, so both of them are in scale measure. Okay, all categorical data will be nominal, and then degree of interest, of course, that's the mean, and mathematics achievement, that's the grade. So it needs to be in scale or in continuous level. Okay. Now, we are all set for comparing the means for research question number 1. So please take note in your notebook what's the step in analyzing comparing the means. So please don't X your SPSS after coding, because we will use it in research question number 1, 2, and 3 respectively. So if you finish coding, everything will just follow. Okay? everything will just follow because it will be easier for you if you have already code and type your data. So now let's analyze for comparing the mean. So you click analyze, you click compare means, and you click means. So you control your sex, socioeconomic status, and year level. You put it in your independent list because that's an independent variable in your paradigm. And of course, degree dependent list would be the degree of interest in mathematics. Why is that so? Because this is the question that we need to answer in our research question number 1. If you remember, what is the degree of interest in mathematics as taken as a whole and when grouped according to sex, socioeconomic status, and year level? And then you click OK here. So you have 3 tables. This is the case processing summary will just tell you if all your respondent is included. So in sex, all of them are included in socioeconomic status and year level. And of course, this one is the result in terms of sex, in terms of socioeconomic status, and in terms of year level. Diba kapos lang, you click analyze, compare means, and you click means. Now, actually we have the results here. Let's go back here. This is the result of the data a while ago. So we could now answer our research question number 1. But as you can see, we can only answer this in terms of sex, in terms of socioeconomic status, and year level. And we cannot answer when taken as a whole. If that's your mindset, then you're wrong. Since we can answer the question when the group is taken as a whole. Where can we find it? We can find it actually, we can find it here in the last rows of every table. As you can see, all of the total here, are the same as you can see here, 3.9560. So meaning you have analyzed the data properly because there is a consistency in your total, but it should be only put in the table once. It should be put at the uppermost column. Uppermost row later. It should be put in the uppermost row later. So when the participants is grouped as a whole, so that's the answer. What about when grouped according to sex? So you probably need this one. And when you need the degree of interest in mathematics in terms of socioeconomic status, you need these rows, the first 3. And of course, for the year level, the first 4. So when categorized according to their own groups, you need all the rows except the total. That's a contradiction when you need the total. If you need the total, you only need to see the last rows and you only need to put it once in your APA table. So what does an APA table looks like when you are summarizing your results? So here is the APA format. Sorry, for this one. Sorry, before that, by the way, we're gonna erase everything. Before that, there is a Likert scale for our study. So this is actually contextualized depending on your study. So in this study, this is the Likert scale. If the mean score later would be 1.0 to 2.0, the interpretation would be not interested. For 2.01 to 3, slightly interested. For 3.01 to 4, moderately interested. And of course, for 4.01 to 5, highly interested. So this is how we interpret our data later when we summarize it into an APA format table. So what does an APA format table looks like? So it looks like this. Wait a minute. This is how it looks like. So there are 4 columns here. The categories, I think the categories, the mean, the standard deviation, and the interpretation. So when the group, the first thing that we need to do in the first row is the whole group first. And then the next one will be the categories that we need to answer in our research question number 1. So sex, socioeconomic status, and year level. So there are 4 columns here. Sorry. There are 4 columns. And where did we get this one? All of this. Where did we get this one? So this is from our here. Our as a whole will also be coming here. This is the SD. This is the mean. So 3.9560 and 65470. So let's check. Here. Sorry. It's here. 3.9560 and 0.56470. So how do we interpret this one? The interpretation depends on your mean. So when it depends on your mean, 3.9560, we're gonna delete it first, is coming from, you go to your Likert scale, here, it is under the third scale, interval, I mean, this one. So moderately interested. So that's how you do the format of your APA. And then, when categorized according to sex, here and here, this one, this will be coming from this one, this row, this table. Here, 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 and here. So 38739, 4.0259, 69427, 62363. So if you can see there in our table, we actually have the same values. So gihalin ko lang siya. Here, here, here. So this one, if we go back to the Likert scale, masalasala, hindi ka mabalik-balik kita, it's under moderately interested. Here, it's highly interested. So how do we interpret our data here? So the analysis and interpretation of data is like this. The table shows that the degree of interest in mathematics of West Visayas State University ILS students, when taken as a whole, students are moderately interested with a mean of 3.9560 and an SD of 0.65470, then you put in mathematics. So we got that here and here. And then what if it is categorized according to sex? When the group is categorized according to sex, the male students are moderately interested. Arisha. And then you put the mean and the SD, while the female are highly interested. You put the mean and the SD in mathematics. And the process goes on and on repeatedly with your socioeconomic status and your year level. The same thing will be in your socioeconomic status and your year level, the same pattern. So the table here in our APA format, you will get it in your table a while ago in the results, the same with SD, and then you interpret it the same with the Likert scale. In the year level, the same process. So the analysis and interpretation would just be the same. but it would be included in the next paragraph. So when the group is categorized according to socio-economic status, so we will have what? We will have this. The poor students are moderately interested, and then as goes on, you put the mean equals to, and then so equals to, and then continue. Meanwhile, the middle class is this. Eventually, or lastly, the rich are this one. So that's how you interpret your data. But always take note in the interpretation of your data, for as long as you have interpretation, please add a supporting research that is aligned with your result, or it may be aligned or it contradicts to your result. So after the interpretation for the mean, there will always be a research. It should be cited, a research that may support or may contradict to your results. So that's it for the comparing the means. So we have already answered question number 1. This is actually the answer. The interpretation is the answer. And of course, the table itself. So it will be put in your chapter 4. And always remember, in your paper, please do the interpretation first, and then the table will be put below the interpretation. So after you interpret everything here, it will be put in below the table. So of course, wala ko lang ibutang ako ano siya table number, but depende na sa study niyo. For example, it's table 2, and then syempre may alipaligalan sa babaw. Table 2 is the degree of freedom, degree of interest in mathematics. Of course, there's a title. Mathematics of WebSU ILS students. Muna siya. Is there any questions? Is there any questions? Questions? Questions, class? I'm entertaining. Don't worry, because this explanation will always be available. The recorded one will be available for you in a YouTube channel that I will be posting. After our consultant verified all the content of our video, we will be posting it on the YouTube, and you can actually access it asynchronously. So you can do it repeatedly. If you don't understand, you can have consultation with us for the running of the SPSS. Questions for research question number 1. Questions? No questions? Are you sure? Do you want an example? I mean, do you want to do your own thing here? I will be giving you an example later. We will be having a one contextualized research problem aligned to this. Actually, isa lang ka wording, isa lang ko English lang. But we will see if you know how to run it later. So we will have one group activity later for the whole class. Okay? So that's how you answered research question number 1. Any questions? So to summarize everything, these are the steps. Sorry, I'm gonna delete first everything. And then this is how you do it. You encode the data in Excel, you transfer the data in SPSS, and label each variable properly. Click variable view and click the value column to change the value for each variable. Ang giobra ta kagina bala nga 1 is for male, 2 is to female, and then sa socioeconomic status 1 is for poor and so on. And then this is the key navigation in the SPSS. You need to understand step 4 to 6 because this is the SPSS thing. This is the main thing. Click, analyze, compare means and means. And then you transfer the degree of interest in the dependent variable. And of course, this can be changed depending on your study, to the context of your study. So for example, in the study of Kaila's group, it's about parental involvement. So you transfer the parental involvement and the dependent variable, and then you transfer the categorical data here. So if you have the same categorical data, like sex, year level, and socioeconomic status, you may transfer it to the independent variable. Okay? This step number 5 can be changed depending to your context. And then 6 would be okay. And 7, you ready your Likert scale. So you may now do your Likert scale before you run it. And then you may give me the check. Actually, some of the groups have Likert scale already, and I have already checked it. It's very good for everyone who have done it. But if you didn't have this one as of this moment, you may do it now before you have, so that before you run this one, so that you will have an easier time to interpret your data. And then chapter 8, retrieve the data and make a APA format table. So your APA format is like this, this one, and then the last row. Tatlo lang din ang linya, basta APA. The first, the second, and the last. Right? So there are 4 categories: the mean, the SD, and the interpretation. Sorry, wrong spelling. And then of course, you analyze and interpret your data based on the results. Questions, class? Wala gid may mga question. Okay, I hope klaro ang tanan. Please raise your hand if it is clear to everyone how to answer research question number 1. Please raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay, thank you for the active response to my question. Now, please lower your hands now. Let's stop the sharing for question number 1. My face is back. So now, wala gid question sa min, are you sure? Kapag sisihan niyan. Wala man. Okay. Next thing is question number 2. Sorry, class. It may be too slow right now, but we need to answer it one by one. We may have extension for the class. Sorry. Now let's have the question number 2. So question number 2, wait, there it is. We will be coming back to question number 2. The question number 2 states that, is there a significant difference in the degree of interest in mathematics of SU ILS students when categorized according to sex, socioeconomic status, and year level? So now, let's focus first on each variable. Let's start with sex. This is the variable for sex. So as you can see here, we want a significant difference to a variable that does have 2 groups, which are male and female. So if you want to find a significant difference using an SPSS to a variable with 2 groups, damo gini per mega sala kamamangkot nga alain naging gamit ka statistical data for 2 groups, and if it has 3 or more groups. So, pamati kang mayo. If there are 2 groups for a significant difference, you will use t-test for independent sampling. Significant difference for two groups. T-test for independent sampling. As you can see there, or in other words, it's also called independent sample t-test. There are two names for this, independent sample t-test or t-test for independent sampling. So is there a difference between two groups? Always remember independent sampling. So our question number 2, going back, we can answer only the question on the sex part when categorized according to sex. So now, before we go to the actual process on how to do t-test, let's define t-test and when do we use this one. So t-test for independent sampling can be used only to 3 study design. Determine if there are differences between 2 independent groups, determine if there are differences between interventions, or determine if there are differences in change scores. So in the contextual research problem a while ago, we are digging up with the first study design. The first study design, because there are 2 independent groups in our study, which are male and actually female. So that's our study design. So we will use here independent samples for t-test or t-test for independent sample. So now, before we have the t-test, of course, there are requirements first. The first assumption or requirement for t-test in the independent sampling, you have one dependent variable at a continuous level. So, masala, kamukha no meaning isang one dependent variable and continuous. We will review. Your one dependent variable here is your degree of interest. Kalaban, that's kung may math. Degree of interest in mathematics. I'll just put it here. And then, how would we know if it is in continuous level? Continuous variable, when we review, are variables that can be written or have a value in decimal form. So as we discussed a while ago in our research data, di ba, ang mga value a while ago is 4.6, 4.2, and that's continuous. Another example for continuous is time. So 4.5 hours, 3.35 hours. Another thing, intelligence, IQ, 0, 127.6 in IQ or 128, or in weight, 68.7, 147.5 pounds or like that, and so forth. So that's the first assumption is actually okay. Assume na ni. Second one independent variable. So our independent variable here is sex, and we have 2 categorical independent groups which are male and female. And of course, you should have independence of observation, meaning your male values, the values for male in the degree of interest will not affect the degree of interest with female. So hindi man siya mag-aapekto. Kay lain-lanay man silang group. So this 3 assumption is actually already been proven or actually reached. So now let's have the last 3 assumption. The next is there should be no significant outliers. When we say outliers, the answers, for example, the values are 4.2, 4.6, 4.8, 3.6, 3.8. That's very close values. But if you have answers like 1.0 or too far from the values of the rest of the group, then this is not for you, because outliers actually tend to produce biases in your data. Significant outliers produce biases. So I think there is no outliers here. I already checked the data. There is no. Presume that there are no. Let's move on to assumption 5. Your data should be normally distributed for each independent group. When you say normally distributed, there are higher scores, there are lower scores, there are middle scores. There are actually a test here for test of normality, but we will not dig it up because we don't have any time. So we presume that our data, for example, is normally distributed na lang. For the 6, your data should be homogeneous. When you say homogeneous, there should be, the variances would be equal. So given that they are equal, you need to do a t-test for independent sampling here. So presume that they are equal na already. We can now do the t-test for independent sampling. So you don't need to dig up too much here in the assumption. It's just, I just explained it for you to understand where do we use the t-test for independent sampling and to clarify things in the assumptions. Next thing is we start the process on doing this. Of course, the null and alternative. So this is the null and alternative. I don't need to discuss it because we already discussed it last time on how to do this. Of course, there is no significant difference and so on. For the alternative, there is a significant difference. Of course, sex pa lang atong ginadiscuss so bongs of sex nang ngimutan ko anay. But in your paper, dapat tanan na siya. This is just for the for sex ng anay so mong kay muna pa lang ina-discuss ta. So easy, don't have to discuss it. Next step is to solve for the degree of freedom. So the degree of freedom is the maximum number of logically independent values in a data set or in data sample. So there is a formula for t-test for independent sampling. The formula is only exclusive for t-test for independent sampling. So your n sub 1 is the number of group 1 and your n sub 2 is the number of group 2 or the male and female. So this n sub 1 plus n sub 2 could also be the total number of your respondent, of course, because there are a total of 50 respondents here. So 50 minus 2 is 48. So nga wala ko nang gibutang sa n sub 1 kay n sub 2 kay hindi naman kinanglan. Balaan na naman nga ang n sub 1 plus n sub 2 is the total number of respondents. So 50 minus 2 is 48. So that's DF. This DF would also be found in your data later if you will run it in your SPSS. So don't dig too much here because the main thing here in our discussion is the SPSS thing. I'll just discuss it for clarification. So we have also discussed last time degree level of significance. So we discussed the 3 different level of significance. And of course, we will use 0.05 since this is the common significant levels for educational and social sciences researches. So 0.05 is always our value. So this will be basis. So if the p-value later will be less than 0.05, it would be what? You reject the null. If the p-value is greater than or equal to, you do not reject. You do not reject. So that's what significant level matters to our study. The less than is reject, or there is a significant difference. Reject mo. And then if p-value does not reject, so do not reject HO. So that's it for the level of significance. Now, actually this is the data. We have already done the result, but of course we will have a demo. Since we have already a while ago coded the data, we don't need to code it again. So it's easier now to answer our research question number 2. So always take note the steps for t-test for independent sampling for 2 groups. You click analyze, you click compare means, and you click one sample independent samples t-test. So this is how you analyze, compare means, and then independent sample. You may screenshot this one if you want to. Now, I'm gonna click it na lang siguro. And then this will be going out here. So your sample, your grouping variable is sex, And of course, your t-test variable is degree of interest because that's the question, Karina. What is the degree of interest? Is there a significant difference, I mean, in the degree of interest when grouped according to sex? So sex here is 1, the male is 1, and the female is 2. So you define the variables by clicking define variables, and one is male, 2 is female. So 1 is 1 and 2 is 2. And then afterwards, you click OK. And this is your values. So this is your Levene test for equality of variance. So here is our result actually for t-test. And I have already put it in our PowerPoint here. And I will teach you how to interpret it. So the Levene test for equality of variance tell us which value of t, which value of df, and which value of the significant or the p-value here will be considered. So as you can see here, 0.521 means that what? The significant value here is greater than 0.5. So you take the value of the first row. But if it is less than, you take the second row. So since it is greater than here, you will get the first row here. You will get the first row. So how do we put it in tables? So there are 5 columns here. Categories, the sex, of course, DF is 48. P-value is here. Your P-value is here. Okay? And then the interpretation is dependent to your P-value. So since it is greater than 0.05, ano ganyan ba ko gina? You do not reject HO. You do not reject HO. So how do we interpret now the APA format table? Sorry for that. I'll get it here. So how do we interpret here the table? So kagina, we have a value or the format on how to interpret this. So you put here T is equal to, T is open parenthesis, your degree of freedom. As you can see, the degree of freedom, nakuha the same lang. So this is 48 is equal to T value. Your T value is 815, comma, your P value is of course the P value here, which is signed significant two-tailed, so 0.419. So how to interpret this one? Of course, because you do not reject the null hypothesis, we will just copy the null hypothesis. This is the null hypothesis a while ago, and then you put a comma and you put the format of the interpretation. So T of 48 is equal to negative 0.15, comma, p-value is equal to 0.419. And we are done. We are done for the interpretation. So questions. I want questions. Questions. By the way, the same APA format, tatlo lang siya ka-row. Tatlo. Naginayad ako dako tong table, so muna nga ang iba ni Rose to wala linya. Basta APA is tatlo lang din siya kalinya nga bold. Ari. Actually wala ni siya ho. Di mo ni siya makita kung ibuta mo sa Word hangga vertical line. Questions class. Interpretation and analysis. The same thing will happen here in your interpretation, by the way. you add researches that support or contradict to your claim. I mean, to your result. Okay? Okay. With, of course, citations. So you put there, in contrary to Sinosa 2022, na muna naman ibutang mo, male students usually higher or has a significant difference when it comes to their degree of interest in mathematics. Di ba? Mas ganado ang mga laki. For example lang na iya. For example. But if it supports your study, then go for it. If it contradicts, it's okay. For as long as there is a ground to your research results. Because researches are made to counter rebut or to support previous studies. Questions? Wala isa question. Raise your hand if you don't have questions so that we can move forward. Only 10 knows how to do it. Only 12 more. Thank you. We have good numbers. We are reaching 18 to 20. Yes, Ken. You have, sorry. Nag-raise gilis na wala question. No? Sorry. So, let's go back to the steps. Oh my gosh, don't have luxury of time. Do 20 minutes na lang. So, this is just the same with the previous thing a while ago. Sa ato niya step, we don't need this. The thing that will change is here. Sorry, step 7 kag 8 lang galit. I'm sorry. I am sorry. So 7 and 8, muni ang imo nga pattern sa SPSS. And then for your 8, of course, your grouping variable will be the grouping variable in your study sa imo man to nga study. Kung sex man siya, to sex man siya. Kung may other kapag nga variable nga 2 iya groups, you can do the grouping variables. You can put it also in the grouping variables. And of course, degree of interest or your dependent variable here should be put also in the dependent variable. So kung parental involvement, of course, parental involvement ka resulti butang muda. And then you put group 1 for the first group and group 2 for the second group. So put 1 and 2 respectively. And then just the same process. This is just the same process a while ago. Questions? We don't have time siguro. My gosh. The activity will just be posted as a problem set. Siguro. As a group na lang. No questions. So very good. Grabe, wala yung question ng grade 10, mga maalam. Or ba sinahuya lang ka mo? Don't be shy. Okay, we will be going out of the second PPT. And we will be answering. May bilin pa ta di ba kina sa research question number 2? So we will be answering research number 2 nga nabilin. Gosh. Hindi ko na supposed to i-wrap. Don't have time. So now we can continue. So the same research problem, but we will answer the last 2 variables here. So as we all know, there are 3 groups for socioeconomic status and 4 for year level. So significant difference gyapon ang ginapakita. So if there are 3 or more groups, lain naman ang test. And the test is called, medyo social ni, pagkaon nga lang niya. It's called ANOVA. One-way ANOVA. And what does ANOVA means? It's an abbreviation of analysis of variance. ANOVA means analysis of variance. Kasi may mamangkot kam ha? So this is to determine where there are statistically significant difference of mean for two or more independent groups. Actually, ANOVA can also be used for two, but preferably for researchers, especially us, together with Terhinon and also with the other PTs, we use three or more for this one. So as you can see here, there are 4 groups. So if you want to get the significant difference for 3 or more, you use ANOVA. And I hope that's clear. Mamangkot naman na sa pila ka adlaw, mag-consultation, nga sir ANOVA, nga t-test. Well, ayun ang sabat. ANOVA is for 3 or more, t-test is for 2. Now, continuing the discussion, there are assumptions. So I don't need to discuss the assumptions. Kaya ang assumption 1 same lang kagina. Ang assumption 2, naglain lang siya. Nag-3 lang siya ho, nag-3 categorical. So ano naman siya na-reach naman siya kay di ba 3 man ang groups ng socioeconomic kag year level. And of course, ang assumption 3, same man kagina, gin-discuss ko naman ni. Next one, we will go to the assumption 4, same man kagina sa assumption 4. And of course, assumption 5, same man kagina. And I don't need to discuss it, kaya na-discuss ko na kagina. Muna nga, i-discuss ko na kagina tanan para hapos na lang kita makamove forward. So, we presume that all the assumptions are reached in our basic requirements. We can now do the one-way ANOVA. So hypothesis, of course, there is no significant difference. There is a significant difference. And that's very clear. It's repeated 5 times already. So we don't need to dig in more. We will just pass by that. And then there's actually degree of freedom also in ANOVA. So K is your number of groups and N is your number of participants. So for your socio-economic status, SES lang kay kalaba. Your K there is, of course, there are 3 groups and of course you have 50 respondents. So if you want to get, there are actually 3 DFs, DF1, DF2, and DF. You can also see this one in the result later. So if DF1 is K minus 1, so that's 3 minus 1, 2, 50 minus 3, 47. 50 minus 1, 49. So, isubstitute nyo lang siya sa formula given ang K kagang N. This is only for socioeconomic status. What if year level siya? So, ang year level, lain naman iya K. 4 groups mo, so 4 ang K. Ang N, wala gala N. 50 magyabang participants mo. So, your DF1 is 4 minus 1. That's 3. Your DF2 is 50 minus 50 minus 4, 46. And of course, your DF is 50 minus 1, that's 49. So, lain ang degree of freedom sang sex ka year level. Lain ila nga D1, F, DF2. Pero same ila DF, 49. So, I think, klaro naman sina. Pero actually, hindi mo manikinanglan solve, hindi makita ko lang DJ kung paano siya solve because your SPSS will automatically give you the answer later. Moving forward, same significant level, we will just pass by, and this is the result. But before the result, of course, we will run it. Muna nga wala tagi naging X ang ato niya data dire, and we will run it. So your analysis would be for ANOVA, click Analyze. You click Compare Means, and you click One-Way ANOVA. Okay? And then, you click Degree of Interest in Mathematics for Dependent List. Of course, kung imo study parental involvement, dira mo man siya ibutang. For factor, of course, ang first ang factor, socioeconomic status. But before we click OK, let's see if we can click Post Hoc. You will click Post Hoc. you can use 2K. Actually, you can actually use anything here. LSD, Shifate, okay. But I will use 2K. That will be my basis. According to actually Laird, that will be 2K. Let's continue and you click OK. So this is your result for ANOVA in terms of socioeconomic status. So, kagina, di ba may DF to? Aring DF1 mo ho, between groups, DF2 mo ari, and your DF is here. And of course, significant siya. Kung significant siya, kinanglan mo ang post-hoc. Kung significant lang. Pero kung hindi siya significant, hindi mo kinanglan ang post-hoc. Kaya significant siya, we will see multiple comparison here below. Sorry, nag-movement siya. We will see different comparison here. So as you can see, may multiple comparison ta. But we will discuss it later lang. We will run first again for year level. So socioeconomic pa lang ni. Ang year level, i-run taliwat. So that will be analyzed, compare means again, one way ANOVA again. Sorry. And then, of course, we will change this to year level. The factor will be changed to year level. So you click OK. So as you can see here, this is your DF1, your DF2, your DF, and then this is your p-value. Since it is not significant, you don't need multiple comparison. You don't need the post-hoc results. You don't need this. Hindi mo siya kailangan. Yeah, you don't need the whole of this one. So we will go back to the result in the PPT. So this is the result a while ago. So this, how to get this one? So socioeconomic status, of course, the DF will be the overall DF, 49. Your F value is this one, very easy. Your P value is this. And of course, since this one is less than 0.05, it's significant. And if it is in year level, the same DF, 49, then your F, then your p-value here, since it is greater than, it's not significant. I hope that's clear. I hope that's very clear. So how to interpret results? So interpreting results, this is how you do it. So kagina, actually nakita naman to. So actually ang wala siyang DF1 day, pero butangan ko lang ha. 3, DF2 is 46. So given sa table kagina, actually may DF1 to kagina kag DF2 sa year level. Nakita ko man to. So there is a format on how to interpret F. Of course, DF1 is 3. This is 46. This one will be coming here. P is this one. 0.290. So that will be the ending of your statement. And since it is not significant, you will just copy the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis. And then you comma, you add the format. And then of course, because you have interpretation here, and then you have analysis of data, you put anything that can support or the same with contradict to your research results. That's the purpose of research, to contradict and support previous studies with APA format. So, dira mo mabalaan kung kulang, di man literature mo ay hindi. So, if kulang, you go to any research that has amuni nga nag-contradict siya or support. You have to get additional literatures. Okay? I think we need to extend video, hindi kita kaya isang time. The same thing will follow to your socioeconomic status. D, sorry, F is, ginabaanan nga di F1 is 2, the F2 is 47. So that's F, F, 2, 47, 7.558, p-value is 0.001. So, ayos siya sa punta. Since significant siya, you copy the alternative hypothesis. Yeah, the alternative. And then the format will be at the end, comma, and then you put insert. Why is it? Because the p-value is this, the f-value is this. If you think you're done with the interpretation, you're wrong. There's actually additional interpretation if there is a significant difference. And that's where our post hoc goes, put in place. We'll put in place our post hoc a while ago. So this is the post hoc a while ago. So there is a post hoc, and as you can see, there are 4 things here in red. Why do you think I put it in red? Because all the significant value here is less than 0.05. And there, since it is less than 0.05, meaning it is significant. As you can see here, if you align this one, that's poor versus middle class. The same thing here. Apat actually ha, chikang ko may red, kundi kita nansin niya. So this is middle class versus poor. Area, kaya wala siya versus, the meaning middle class ni gyapon. So middle class ni siya. Ari poor versus. This is rich versus. Kulang lang. Kaging group yun na lang. So you have 4 comparisons. Poor versus middle class versus poor, middle class versus rich, rich versus middle class. So as you can see, 2 ang 0.19 ho. Meaning nag-repeat lang. Nag-repeat lang ang poor versus middle class. So hindi kinanglan 4, di ba? So, ang rich kag middle class nag-repeat man. Nag-repeat. So how would you interpret this one? So you will interpret there is a significant difference between in the degree of interest in mathematics of poor and middle class students. Then butang mo man dayon ang butang mo man dayon ang subong, hindi mo na kinanglan ng F. Ang kinanglan mo na lang is P. So I'll give you example. There is a significant difference. Sorry. Ako lang difference. In the degree of interest. Sorry. Masala-sala ako. Degree of interest in mathematics between, of course, isisahon mo between poor and middle class students. And then, subong di makalang F. P is equal to 0.19. Nagit lang lang. Pintok. Tapos. The same thing will follow sa rich and middle, sa rich kag middle class. So, islan mo lang ni rich and middle class students. And of course, you change P is equal to 0.02. Sorry, hindi siya makita. So that's the additional interpretation, but this should be interpreted only for the group which has significant differences. Questions? Actually, there will be videos for this. Don't worry. It will be posted in YouTube. Naka-separate man siya, degree of means, ANOVA, t-test, and person R. So I think that's all for ANOVA. So same thing, not discuss the summary of steps. The steps is just the same from 1 to 6, 7 and 8 different, 9 and 10 same. So ang kinalain lang gidiri is ang one-way ANOVA. And then of course, your factor na siya subong. So pwede man nga Islam sa socio-economic status, sa factor, or year level. Depende sa imo study. So basically, in your study, same man. Kaging basak man siya. And then, for example, parental involvement, of course, you change it here into parental involvement sa dependent variable. And then you're done. That's ANOVA. That's ANOVA. Period. So we have answered now. To sum up, first, your research question number one was answered using comparing the means. Your 2 was answered depending on the variable. So your sets was answered using t-test for independent sampling, and your year level and your socioeconomic status was answered using ANOVA. So that's the summary as of now, because we will answer the last research question in the next discussion. So summary pa lang na para do guided man kita. So is there any questions? If there's no question, raise your hand. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You may now raise down. Now, my gosh, it may be too taxing for you to attend this class. I'm very, very sorry. We need to extend a little bit. So we will have the person-product moment correlation in the last question. So, sorry. Oh, sorry. So the last question, For the last question, the keyword here is relationship. Significant relationship. So if we are finding for significant relationships, hindi siya hindi ko yung sorry. Hindi ko yung kasulat. Sorry ha. I will just pause the sharing of screen. Thank you. I'm back. Alright, pwede na ako salat. The keyword here is significant relationship. So when we are talking about significant relationship, there's only one thing that comes to mind. And that is your person-product moment correlation. Kalabas ang ngalan, no? Person-product moment correlation. But it could be called as person-R correlation. Wala ng product moment. Complete ko lang. So as you can see, if you have significant relationship, that's person-product. So what is person-product moment correlation? It is usually used to discover relationship between two variables. So here in our study, in the contextualized research problem, our two variables here are degree of interest in mathematics and of course, mathematical achievement. So muna ang atong two variables na gina-discover kung may relationship. So that would be the person-R product. There are 4 assumptions. Assumption 1 is just the same a while ago. Ni-discuss ko na. Your two variables should be measured at the interval or ratio level. So ang atong variable to kagina, degree of freedom na naman. Degree of interest and mathematical achievement. Sorry to my penmanship. So both of this should be in ratio level. So kagina, naka-ratio naman to siya. Kaya ratio means it has an absolute 0. So it could be scores, exam performances, grades, interest, parental involvement, or anything. It should be quantified. Ang nominal, actually interval could be also hierarchical. So pwede man siyang interval siya. Meanwhile, assumption 3, there should be a linear relationship. So makita mo kung gataasayhan ang grades ang bata kung gataas mo niya nga nga interest. Kung the degree of interest siya sa us. And 4, of course, it should pass the assumption 4 by bivariate normality. So there is actually a test for this, but we will not dig in. We will just presume that it is in bivariate normality. Now, of course, hypothesis. And I think ang kinalain lang ni Gina, significant difference, but now it should be significant relationship. There's no, there is. So, no need to dig in. Person R correlation has a formula for the degree of freedom, very basic. N minus 1, so 50 minus 1, DF is 49. So that would be the interpretation. DF equals 49. The same level of significance, diba? Liwat lang kita. And I already run it. Kapit na lang dyan, guys. Kapit lang. Okay, as you can see my, can you see my screen? Kagina?
Ang subong sir, wala sir.
Are, kita nyo?
Wala pa sir.
Oh my gosh. Ang SPSS makita nyo?
Makita
Yes,
ko,
sir.
sir.
Okay. We will click analyze now for the person product. And then, again, di ba compare means na nan? So, hindi na. Sa correlate na ta. Siyempre, so, of course, wala na makina nga bivariate normality siya. So, you click bivariate. And then, you put your two variables here. Your two scale variable ang naka-ratio siya bala. Ang duwa ka may relationship. And then, you click person. Sperman will be used for non-parametric data. But given that we use parametric data, or I mean, yeah, parametric, it means you have simple random, stratified random, cluster. So we use that. So that's why we use person R. But if you use convenient, kung sino na maka-answer anay, that's you use Sperman raw. But since we need this one, kay ano man siya, parametric, we check person, you click two-tailed, and you click the flag significant correlation. So what does a flag significant relation do with your table later? If there is a flag significant correlation, you will see an asterisk. So kung may asterisk ka makita karon, meaning there is a significant relationship. So you click OK now. Let's see if there is significant relationship. So there is double what? Double asterisk. So there is a significant relationship. Going back to our APA format table, sorry for that. Going back to our APA format table, we will be, what? We will be having this one. So categories, kagina DF, tanan, subong N na siya. Then R, p-value, interpretation. So your N is of course, ari siya. Your R is, ari siya ho. This is your R, this is your P, this is your N. So ara siya. So ara man siya tanan. So as you can see, less than siya sa 0.05. So there is a significant relationship between degree of interest and mathematics achievement. I think klaro man na siya. So how to interpret? Medyo malawala ba ang interpret? So of course may format man siya. So R, that's 50, is equal to R value 0.650, comma P is equal to 0.000. Pinto. It will be at the last. So buong niya, hindi na kinala makagto sa alternative na kita dapat ma-interpret. There is a strong, hindi na ganin ng strong, dire. So take note of this table. Kung may correlation lang, kung may significant relationship lang ha. So Strong comes here. Why? Because our p-value is greater than 0.5, as you can see here. I mean, R value is greater than 0.5. So 0.650 is greater than 0. So that's the interpretation for strong. Positive. Positive ang values ng R. Common sense. Significant relationship. So strong, positive. Strong comes here. Positive comes here. And then, as is, and then, comma, R is equal to R50 is equal to 0.650, comma, P equals 0.000. Pinto. Tapos, ang storya. Di ba, hapos na lang niya, kaya ginaliwat-liwat, alang ang process, alang kagina. Lain-lain lang ang tables. Okay, questions. Questions. So, wala question as of now. Okay, habol kita time. Step 1 to 6 are just the same. Step 7 and 8, kinalain lang. 9 to 10, the same. So, ang kinalain nila, ang word nga correlate kag bivariate. Ang kinalain deriya, kinanglan mo siya i-check sa person correlation kag two-tailed. And ang dapat i-move mo sa variables, ang imo nga, duwa man ka dependent. Ang duwa mo ka scale. Kung ano man ang question mo, kung example, parental involvement, kag grades. Kung ano gali, ang academic achievement, di mo manain, butang mo da sa variables. Pero this is exclusive for your research. Actually, iban sinyo, wala mo ni. So, okay lang yan. In-discuss ko lang siya para sa tanan, kay ang iban may ara. Iban yung group. I think, may sa Kayla, group may ara. Or Deshalin. I think so. But, that's everything. And of course, don't forget, your step number 11 should have, of course, contradiction or support. Hindi pwede nga i-interpret mo lang siya nga wala support from researches. That's a big no-no. And remember, always put the interpretation before the table. By the way, ang interpretation to kagina mo nilang. Pero dapat ang imo interpretation for paano siyang table. Table 4 shows, for example, the significant difference. For example, between the degree of interest when grouped according to sex. While analyzing the data, please take note, the researchers found out that there is, dagto ka na namutang sang there is, mo amo na ning insert kung kaginaw ang sa interpretation. Dapat may ara kagya intro anay, di mo pwede nga there is a significant ti ano dayon. Kung ako mabasa nga panel, ti ano dayon. Dapat may ngalan siya. Okay. Lat lang, para makita niyo yung ulat lang. Lat lang get. Duga pa isa ka slide. Ngal na siya. Questions, grade 11. Grade 11, sorry. Nag-klase ako lang sa grade 11. Grade 10 palang gali. Nadali ako. Grade 10. Questions. I will be posting you will have an exercise later. You will be sending your answers, your own answers in the GC later. I'll be giving you data to practice. Actually, the data is already here with me. Not this one. It's actually here. Here. This will be your practice later. This will be your practice. And it will be posted as a problem set by para dasig na lang siguro by group, research group na sobang hindi na by 3. Kung by 3, damo-damo na makaumobra, iyawang na. by research group. And always remember, when you pass the problem set later, please, just kindly please give me a screenshot or proof that you work together to answer each research problem. No proof that you help the group, no points. Okay? No proof, you will turn in proof also. Proof, your answer, your proof, and the data. Of course, with interpretation. Understood, class. Questions. If you don't have question, please raise your hand. Questions, please raise your hand if you don't have any questions, class. Kasi ibang katulog na da or nagutom na, it's a tie. Parehos kita ginabatcha. Duwag lang estudyante ko. If you have questions, guys, it's open now. I'll entertain questions. Questions? Okay, wala. Please lower down your hand. I will be checking the winners for this one, for the game. Tan taran tatan. Wala aw. Oh my gosh. Di nang. Karon na lang, isend ko na lang ang nadaog karon. I will be sending the result of the winners later. Kung hindi ko makita, tiliwaton nyo ang game. Joke lang. Okay, going back. Please open your cameras for the photo off. Photo off. Nakibaan wala pa kapaliko. Just go. Huwag ka pitis man, election. Open your cameras. Ang mga daw, wala ka open camera, feeling ko katulog. Open. Bilisan nyo na kasi papunta na tayo sa exciting na part. For today's video, oh my gosh, tuba camera ni Jackie, okay. Wala nun, si Robic, wala ka, kaligo. Kadawin si Kayla. Okay, very good. Dumudamo. Gaano ba? Gaano daw open cam ba? Okay, 1, 2. Wait lang. 1, 2, 3, smile. Wait lang. Okay, another one. Page 2, smile. 1, 2, 3, smile. Wow, grabe kay smile ni Ashley kag ni Ina. Doon nakakuha ko 100. Okay. That's it. By the way, if you have consultation, if you want consultation before running your SPSS, pag natapos nyo ng inyong collection of data. By the way, before we end, I will ask